Hello everyone, this is Gayle, and today I thought I've had Celtic knots on my brain for weeks now, so I decided I would show you another Celtic knot. I don't know if I ever told you what Celtic knots were, but back in, let's see, the history of a Celtic knot started, I guess, at about the 2nd or 3rd century AD, and it started showing up on some of the Roman architecture. And as the Roman Empire was slowly dying, you might say, the craftsmen carried this with them to other places. Now, the reason they're called Celtic knots, even though they're used in other cultures, most of the popularity of them was in England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, where the Celtic people lived. So they became known as Celtic knots. Now, if you'll look at these, let me get something that I can point with. Like this one is, oh, I didn't show it, our basic trinity. The most common one is a trinity knot, which is this here. And it just makes the 3, I'll tell you what, let me color them in. Let me see if I have a marker here that I can color in with. How about if I use the silver one? All right, I'm going to do it on this one up here. The Celtic knot, well, that's not very dark, but it's actually this part. Maybe I should have used the black instead of the silver. Let me just color. I like to color. Wish I don't keep my colored markers close to my clay. And now that I have a separate space for my paper crafting, they're actually not even in the same room. But I don't know if you can see that or not. Maybe you can because it is silver. It'll be shiny. But the actual knot is this shiny part. That's called a trinity knot. And in the Christian faith, it is representative of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now, they've started adding things because they've added this circle to it, which is not part of the knot, because the knot is one consistent line. But here they've added a circle, and that circle was for eternal life. So whenever you see a Trinity knot with the circle, it's the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and eternal life. Here it is a little bit smaller. But I was just showing, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet. Now this one has a heart, and I happen to have a piece of, actually a couple pieces of jewelry, where it's the Trinity knot, and then the heart is added, and my heart has got little diamond chips in it. And it's beautiful. I've got a pendant, and then I have just the regular earrings without the diamond chips for earrings. And then they have them in long shapes. There's just dozens and dozens of knots. But I thought this would be the one that we would work on today, just because it's kind of, you don't have so many twists and turns, and this one is kind of straight. So I'm going to cut out the small one, since that's going to be the one that I'm using. Actually, let me just cut straight across. And I'm going to use this, the larger one, to show you things, since this is going to be a little bit smaller. But this is the one we're going to use. Now, I'm making this a little large. When I say that, This shape would be good for maybe a barrette, a hair clip, a scarf holder. You know, it wouldn't make a very good pendant, although I guess you could let it hang this way. Hadn't thought about that. But that's not what we're going to, I'm not going to actually make a finished project just because I'm making this a little larger than I normally would, so it'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing. Now you see I have kind of pressed this down. I've got a half a block of silver clay that I've conditioned and a half a block of black clay that I conditioned, and they are both on the thickest setting of the pasta machine. Now I'm going to take one of my ball tools. Now I don't want to break the paper, so I'm not going to use the tiny end. I'm going to use a larger end, but actually I think maybe I'll use this one. It's not quite as big. And I'm going to trace this, going right on the lines through the paper, and just do it section by section. And as long as you've got a continuous line, keep your continuous line. Let me see if I can come in a little bit. Oh, I hope I didn't move that. It came loose. I think it's still there. But just trace your design, and like I say, go ahead and make your solid line, you know, your straight marks. I think I already did this one, but I just want to make sure. Because what you want to see is the areas where these pieces cross, like right here, where that looks like it comes over and this goes under, because that's very important in doing this. I know I'm tracing over some of these a couple times because I'm losing track of where I've traced, but I'd rather trace over it twice and know that I've got it than to miss one. You see here, all we're doing is tracing. Now I'm sure there's probably an easier way to do this. But this is the way I learned many years ago. Okay, I think I can see that. Can you see it? Because what we're going to do is take our craft knife and cut it out. And I would start with the outside. Keep your knife straight up and down. And cut around the outside. Now in this case, you don't want to cut all your lines yet. You just want to trim around the outside. And even for me, this takes a little practice. Try to keep your knife straight up and down, which I don't think I was doing very well on the other part. And And there's my old dog, which means she wants to go outside. She just woke up from her nap. So I am going to pause the video for a moment, let her out, and then I'll be back. I'm back. I apologize for the interruption, but this poor little dog is 14 years old. And when she wakes up from her nap, she lets you know she needs to go outside, and if you don't take her out, she can't hold it anymore. So I needed to take care of her. So let me finish cutting this out. See, I missed the line there because I'm working on the back side now, which is always difficult for me. Actually, what I think I can do is use my potter's rib to pick it up, and I'll turn it around. And like I said, this is a potter's rib. I'm asked by everybody, every time I use this, I'm asked. It's available. I couldn't find them on Amazon by themselves, but they were in kits of 3 or 4 different shapes, which would be awesome. And they're fairly cheap, but it's on my Amazon store, or they're in my Amazon store, if you're interested. So just try to stay on the line. And cut out the outside. Let's see if I got it all cut. I did all right. You can see how stiff the clay is. It's very cold in my studio. I'm going to put this on a piece of parchment paper and just kind of refine the edges a little bit. You can see there where I sliced, excuse me, sliced twice. And you can work with this later. Now the difficult part. Now we're going to go into each one of these little squares. Again, let me come in so you can see. Or I told you I was going to show you on here. Let me go back out because I can't work but so close. Now I'm going to go in and cut out all of these little triangles, rounded triangles, and squares. So here we go. And again, try to keep your blade straight up and down. And take your time. I'm going to just cut out a few, and then I'm going to pause the camera while I finish. There we go. Because you see, this isn't very even, so I will round this out a little bit more to make it more even. This is also where I didn't cut very straight down, so I will just trim that straight down, which makes that even up pretty good. And you do the same thing on these little squares. And just be very careful that you don't cut your design. And just, for me, it's easier to clean them up as I go rather than to wait till the end. Because I always seem to miss some when I wait till the end. And I'll do a couple more before I think what I'll do is just fast forward. But I'll show you a couple more. In case I run into a situation that I need to show you something. And looking at this isn't very straight up and down either. Okay. So I'm going to fast forward while I finish the cutting, and then I'll be back to regular time in just a minute. Okay, I've finished cutting it out. Now you're probably wondering, what good is it going to do to cut it out, you know? But what I'm going to show you is how to make this three-dimensional. Now I'm going to just lay this down next to it so I can have something to go by, because I've been touching this and some of my little marks you can't see very well. So keep your pattern and keep it next to you. Now you'll see here, this is where it goes over. So you've got this line here and this line here. You want to cut those. So that would be this line here and this line here. And then the next one that you cut is this one here. See, this goes straight over, so you want to cut this line and this line. So I'm going to cut this line and this line. Now rather than go on and do all of them, I'm going to start doing these as I get to them, because I'm afraid I might lose the shape of my knot. So this one had a piece that I didn't get off. It was cut, but it wasn't. So what you need is some kind of a flat little tool. If you feel okay using the end of your blade, you can use that. I have this little spoon type tip on the end of my tool. So on the sides where this line is right here, that was this line right here, I'm going to push this down until I bevel it right along that edge. But you need to make sure you don't misshape it. So you bevel that side and you bevel this side. So now it looks like that this piece here goes underneath when it really doesn't. It's sort of a faux technique. Now we're going to do the same thing here. This is the straight one. Let me make this a little more pretty. Kind of messed it up a little while ago, and I meant to fix it while I had the camera on hold. So we did this one, and the other one we cut is this one. So I'm going to take here, I'm going to just press down and bevel it, and take this side and press down and bevel it. So again, let me take it up really close. It looks like those pieces go under, and they really don't. They're right there. Now I'm going to try it. I've never done it this way, but I'm going to try not cutting it, because cutting it, I noticed when I went to bevel it, they moved a little bit. I'm afraid they'll lose their contact with the clay. So I'm just going to try here. Let me look at my thing. All right, so this is a solid one. So this here, let me try it without cutting it, just beveling it. And I think that'll work just as well. So you see right here, I just beveled it without cutting it, and I think it looks fine. So I'm not going to cut anymore. So then this one being the solid one, this one is solid, so we need to bevel right here. And always remember, you've got to do both sides. And this one is the straight one. Look at your design. This comes down here, so this cross section here, it needs to be beveled there. And try to get it, you know, as even a dent, a bevel, or whatever you want to call it, as you can in your clay, so it'll look like this goes all the way through. Alright, so then this one is the solid. So again, I'm going to put this on fast forward and finish doing the beveling, and then I'll be back. Okay, I just wanted to show you I messed up because this one came over here and I should have beveled on this side, but I ended up beveling on this side. So I'm going to try to fix it by pressing in on each side here and bringing this clay back up. I don't know if I can or not. And let me try beveling this and see what happens. If I can bevel this. And bevel this. And you notice when you press, it spreads out, so you need to press those ends back in. Then I'm going to try just smoothing this out. So it looks solid. So after I told you to be careful and watch your pattern, I didn't watch my pattern very well, but I think that will work okay. I'm just trying to make it look like one continuous strip here. Okay, back to fast forwarding. Okay, I think I've got all of my bevels done. So if you look at this, if I start here at the top, it looks like I'm going here and I'm going over and under, over and under, over and under. Then it turns over and under, over and under, over and under, over and under. So yes, I've got it all done. It looks like one continuous piece of clay. And, you know, take time to smooth things out a little bit. You can use this. You can use a brush if you have the little firm bristled brushes that I think Teresa Salgado sells them at Tiny Pandora. I know Donna Cato sells them. But they're like a molding brush. And it's good for things like this. Because you know, on your mica clay, like the silver is, that's where I cut it. But with the mica clay where you're like your silver, it's going to show every little mark. So be sure you trim it, you know, clean it up. I could probably do a little more with mine. But I'm not going to worry. Now what I would do, before I do anything else, oh, well, that ended up not being very pretty. It might get covered up. I don't know. I evidently had something on my work surface when I laid this down. But you want to lay this on a backing clay. So again, I'm going to use my little potter's rib. To pick this up and lay it on my backing. Make sure it's stuck. And again, you can still tweak it a little bit if you want. But then what I would do is cut just a fraction larger than your design. And I just like to cut things off as I cut them so that they don't get in my way. But just maybe a 1/16 of an inch larger. Because if you stop and think, this here, even when it's baked, because of the bevels that you've put in here, it's not going to be a very strong piece of clay. So having it on a backing allows you to do things with it, like I got something white down in there. But you'll be able to use it, like I said, as a barrette. You could put holes in it to use in this shape, unless you hung it this way. It would be sort of an awkward shape to use as earrings, but you could make them smaller. This is about as small as I felt like I could go and still have it show up on my video. So you can go smaller, which is why I showed you on my sample piece that I did a small one and a large one and a small one. Now, if I made one this small, or maybe even a little bit smaller, make it about an inch, I could make earrings out of those very easily, and then maybe one in between these two, maybe about this size or that size, then you can make a pendant. So, you know, you can make these any size you want. I just wanted to show you how to do it, and then you can decide what project you want to make. That's a little bit thicker than I wanted. And yes, it cuts this patty paper which is why I moved a little while ago, and I cut too much off there. I'll see what I can do to get that more evened up. But just cut around. And this is what will give it its strength. Well, let me cut this off. I just feel I do better when I just cut the clay out of the way. You don't have to do it this way. You do it whichever way is easiest for you. This is just what makes it easier for me. That's underneath. Yeah. And then you can take a little, actually I can use the same my same tool. I can use this end here. You can use clay shapers, if you have any clay shapers. Anything that can smooth your clay out. And I'm going to round some of these corners. Because I don't want the sharp angle on my corners. I'm just cutting the very tips off. Then I'm going to just take a tool and just smooth around these curves. Try to even out some of the, like here where I cut all the clay off. Maybe you won't notice it so much once it's all smoothed. You can see there's a little bit extra clay here. Decided if I cut it off over here, I better cut it off over there too. And again, just smooth your curves. Now at this point, it is entirely up to you if you want to cut out the insides. I don't think I am. I am going to change patty papers though. See how this cut through all my patty paper? Let me come back out just a little bit. So now what I think I'd like to do is to add a little texture after I get this the way I want it. Now's the time to fix any of the little things you want to fix. And you can pick it up now. It's strong enough now sitting on here, and you can work a little bit more on these edges. Just get it the way you want it. Now, I think I'm going to use a toothpick. And I'm going to go around the center and just put little dots in it. Just down the center. Most Celtic knots have some kind of texture to them. This will also help to define the knot. And you might want to take your time more than I am because mine are not very straight. You could put 2 rows of dots. Instead of coming down the middle, you could go one on each side. But personally, I just like the single row of dots, unless it's a bigger one. If it was big, if I did a bigger one like this, even though I would probably never do this design this big, but if then maybe I would put 2 rows of dots on it. Or even use a different tool. I've got rollers and things that put texture on. I could use any of those. But since this is such a skinny little knot, or whatever you want to call it, band, string, okay, and I think I'm going to add some, where's my platinum powder? That's not it. Guess I'm going to have to stand up. And that is the platinum powder. Because I want this to look like silver, and I think I've told you they don't, Mona Lisa doesn't make the platinum powder anymore. But you could use a silver Pearl-X. And just run over the top. I just like this because it makes it look like silver. And it really accents those little dots. And I'm not getting the areas where it looks like it goes under, which really kind of helps it. Look at my silver finger. So now what I would do, if I'm going to use it as a barrette, and I don't know, I used to have some barrettes, but I don't know where they are. But the barrettes are usually arched a little bit. So I would maybe put this over a little bowl. I've got these little, these are some bowl forms that I got from Donna Cato. And you can use them for so many things. There's a little tiny dome. But I think, because barrettes don't usually curve too much, and they're a matte finish, so you won't get a shiny end. Oh, and let me stamp it with my stamp. Not where I can see it, obviously. I'm working on my craft room this week. But anyway, I would lay this on here so it would bake at a curve. There you go. and I would bake this for at least an hour. You know, something else I might do. I think I'm going to take my toothpick and just jab these little black spaces. It gives it sort of a rough look and keeps it, let me see, it looks a little funny anyway. So here's where I've jabbed it with the needle, with the toothpick. But just rough those up, not rough them up, but just put a bunch of little dots in there. And it just accentuates your knot. So I'm going to finish that before I put it in the oven, but there you go. There is a Celtic barrette. You can use other, like I said, other shapes. You can use a shape like this and make earrings or bracelet. You can make smaller ones of this and turn it this way to make earrings. You could use this as a pendant. If you decided to do the earrings, you could do this as a pendant and put a jump ring through here and a jump ring through here and hang it this way. So there's so many different options that you can do with these. But I hope you enjoyed this. I love Celtic knots. And this looks so, it's much easier to do it this way than to try to weave. I've tried weaving it, and man, is that hard. It's not as easy as you would think. Your clay sticks to itself. Anyway, I'll finish this up. So anyway, hope you like that. And please come back again next Monday. I'll have another polymer clay video for you. And always check up with me on Fridays for my Friday Frolics. I have different information and just sharing, you know, like having that cup of coffee. Get you a cup of coffee and sit down and watch my Friday Frolics with me. So I will see you soon. Bye-bye.